Hi everyone, my name is Ali Grayman. I'm a specialist in OCD recovery. Today we're going to be answering questions about the process of recovery. If you have OCD, please listen until the end. There's going to be a lot of information given out that you need to know to recover. So let's get started. So the first question is about doing compulsions and doing them extremely thoroughly, such as when a person is washing hands or feet, they're thinking, did the water reach the cracks in the heels or the skin folds? When they're doing laundry, they're thinking, did the water get inside the knot of the thread or under the button of a clothing item? Is this OCD? And they're washing for longer times. How should they handle it? Yes, this is definitely OCD. If something is bothering you to the extent of you have no control over it, you feel like you have to do it, there's that urgency to do it, it's always the same theme. It always has to do with washing, or you have 2 or 3 different themes. Like you have the washing, then maybe some pure O, and then some other compulsion, right? And you're kind of rotating between them throughout the day. All of these are OCD. The more you show your mind that you are scared, because when you are washing it very thoroughly, right? What is the thought process? I have to wash it. If it's not clean, that's not good. You're in a position of fear in that moment. When you're showing your mind fear on any topic, for you it happens to be the washing. It doesn't matter. This is same thing with driving OCD, that the person shows fear. What if I, hit somebody while driving, or a pure type of thought? What if I did something bad? It can be about anything. As soon as you start to show fear towards any thought, your mind takes that to mean that the thought is important. That part of the mind that is really responsible for OCD is reactionary. It's not conscious in a way of it can understand the difference between a real thought and an OCD thought. It can't. Whatever you react it takes it to mean that this is a real thought. So you react to this, whatever it is, it could be the silliest thing. It's going to send you panic. So if you react without fear, right? It's not going to it takes your reaction and kind of like records it. And then the next time it's going to send you that reaction. So that fear you are receiving is because you reacted with fear before. And that's why people have different types of obsessions and compulsions, is because different people are triggered by different situations. It's just some people are more family oriented, so the obsession is going to be about family. Some people are more, say, I don't know, work oriented. The obsession is going to be about work, right? It depends on the type of person that we're talking about. But if it's trying to get to you, no matter what it is, say like the washings in this case, refuse, say it, and refuse from a position of power. That, you know what, I've been doing this for a while now, it's getting worse and worse, I'm not going to continue to do this anymore. I'm done with this. And when you come from a position of power, it can't get you. It can only get you when you're coming from a position of fear. Because again, you're training your brain to view the situation with fear. It's on a physical level. It's not just, talking about it kind of thing. It's on a physical level. Your brain creates a neural pathway, as they're called, between this thought and fear. So when a trigger comes up that brings up this thought, fear automatically sets in. Because in the past you reacted with fear. What we're trying to do is react without fear, and after a while, that's going to be the new way the brain handles it. So when you're faced with a trigger, you no longer feel the fear. And that's kind of the essence of OCD recovery. But the most important part of the recovery is the day-to-day, hour-to-hour of refusing the thought. Not refusing that I'm so scared I'm going to run away from it. Again, not from a position of fear, but saying I've had enough with this. I'm done with this. If you're saying it that way from a position of power, and then your mind is going to try to send you thoughts of, well, how do you know? Well, what if you're wrong? What if this? What if that? Again, I'm done with this. I don't care. Power through as much as possible. It's not going to be a perfect process, but as much as you can, try to power through it. So next time you feel the urge to wash or do whatever, in terms of some OCD compulsion, just say, you know what, I'm not going to do it. Or if you feel like you can't completely say no, then have a limit of, okay, I've been washing for, say, 20 minutes at a time. I'm going to give myself a max of 10 minutes. So you're cutting it down slowly. Also, delaying works. This is what I mean, guys. Don't click away from this video. Keep listening until the end, because there's a lot of tips that are given out as the questions get asked. But at least try to delay the compulsion rather. So, okay, I feel like I need to wash my hands, or I feel like, in this question, right? I feel like I need to wash this super thoroughly. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to just wash it to the best of my ability and then move on, And then if I feel like, say, a few hours later, it's still bothering me, then I can come back and rewash it again, if I feel like doing that. And most of the time, you're gonna already move on by that point, Or if it's towards the later part of the day, I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I'm gonna see how I feel about it tomorrow. Because when you're doing it that way, when you're saying that to your mind, you're saying basically, I'm in control, I have the power, I am making a choice. So you're very much coming from a position of power, and your mind sees, okay, maybe this thought is not so important. Maybe I don't need to send it to you a million times a day, along with fear, right? So it's just, it's doing the best you can. And also, parallel to that, not beating yourself up when you're not doing the right thing. If it's like a slip up, if you're not doing the right thing day after day after day, you really need to examine it, because you are taking, every time you do the wrong thing in terms of reacting with fear, doing compulsions, you're taking a step back in your recovery. Guys, in this show, I don't sugarcoat things. It is what it is. You are taking a step back. But if you took, 2-3 days in a row, you took steps forward, and then one day you slipped back, that's not bad, because you still made progress overall throughout the week, right? But if it's one day on, one day off, and you've been doing recovery for a while, in the beginning, it is going to be like that, because you're learning how to do this. You're learning to live with anxiety. And that's another thing I'm going to mention in just a little bit. But you have to make sure you're moving forward more than you're moving back. So if you see that you fell down for one day, then you're still doing compulsions, analyzing, checking, whatever, the next day and the next day. It doesn't matter if this is physical checking or mental checking. You're checking, that means it's OCD. You shouldn't be doing it because it's a reassurance. Reassurance can, if you're new to this channel, you're just listening for the first time, it's, can be self-reassurance, which is trying to figure things out, analyzing, maybe looking stuff up online, reassurance from other people, asking for reassurance. It doesn't really matter. You're trying to make sure you are safe. And the more you try to do that, the more the mind is going to throw these thoughts at you. So, and then the other part about the anxiety is that when you refuse, the anxiety is not immediately going to go away. The big reason for that is you've repeated to your brain that this thought, whatever this theme is, right, is very important over and over and over again, depending on the situation, right? For some people it's months, for some people it's years, right? It can all be undone. Even, I talk to people who are in their 60s, 70s, they still recover. They still undo it. It doesn't matter how old you are, as long as you're powering through and refusing. But don't get discouraged if, like people ask me, well, I've refused a few times now, why am I not recovered, I get that question a lot. And it's because you've repeated the wrong thing a lot. And now to undo it, it also has to be repeated a lot. So it's going to take time. On average, I would say, 6 months is a fair estimate in probably 70%, 80% of cases. In terms of recovery. Because, again, the brain has to rewire itself on a physical level. So it takes a little bit of time to do that. So you see that you're having anxiety come in? Fine, this is just OCD anxiety. I don't need to react to it. View it like you're viewing runny nose when you have a cold. It's there, it's annoying, there's nothing you can do about it, so just live parallel to it. Try to keep as busy as possible with work, with, daily life. Just keep doing that. as the anxiety is still there in the back of your mind. It is going to be painful. There's no way to escape the anxiety, because that part of the mind at this moment in time thinks that this situation is really important and you're really refusing the reaction and you're doing the wrong thing. That's how the mind is viewing it, because that's kind of what it's been taught, right? So it is going to be panic. There is going to be anxiety, you know. Don't try to get away from it. Don't try to diffuse the anxiety. Just say, you know what? I'm powering through. I don't care. Send me thoughts of fear. Send me anxiety. Send me whatever you want. I want to recover. I don't care about that anymore. You know, from the way I'm talking right now is the way I want you to talk to yourself when you're talking about recovery. You know, from a strong position of power. And all this actually goes right along with the next question of the person saying that I'm pressuring myself that I should be fully recovered and I'm not. So, yeah, any suggestions on what to do? Basically, you know, it takes different amount of time for everybody. And the only reason, the only thing that stands between you and recovery is doing better at refusing reassurance. That's all there is. You know, and everybody takes, you know, a different amount of time. You know, some people sooner, some people later. If you're in the process of recovery, think about this. Are you better right now than you were when you first started the recovery? If you are better but not quite there, that's fine. If you feel like you're not better at all, then you need to try a lot more, you know. And that's the thing, guys. I can tell you, when I was recovering from OCD, I failed so many times at recovery. You know, I've gone backwards so many times, majorly backwards, not like a day or two, but major setbacks. And you just pick yourself up and you keep going until you fully recover. You know, so it's because when you are getting in that mode of feeling discouraged, it still sends a negative message to your mind, still saying, you know, I'm in fear, I don't feel well. So you're still sending that message in a way, right? So I want you to, in this situation as well, come from a position of power and say, you know what? Mine is taking a little bit longer. So what? I'm not the only one who has a recovery taking a little bit longer. Some people go really fast, some people go slow. We still all end up at the finish line. And I can tell you from my experience, right? My recovery was not the fastest. You know, mine was probably towards the slowest, you know, just because it took time, you know. I mean, granted, I didn't have all the information that I do now, right? Or really any information when I first started recovery, right? But you just have to keep going. You just have to push through and say, you know what? I'm doing this. I'm taking it seriously, and it's focusing on the recovery as you would focus on the job as well. Because it kind of right now is your job, because everything else in your life more or less depends on your recovery from OCD, right? Because when we're in the state of OCD, right, everybody suffers. The job suffers, family suffers, you know, everybody around that person that has OCD, you know, is impacted by it, right? So when you focus on OCD recovery, everything else is kind of will improve by default, you know? So taking it seriously, powering it through, don't care if I wasn't recovering as fast as I wanted to in the past, turning a new leaf, I'm doing this now, you know? I find generally people recover the fastest when they hit that, not rock bottom, but when they're sick of it, when they've had enough of it. They're just like, you know what? It's taking too much of my life. I can't deal with this anymore. You know, those people generally recover the fastest. So it's becoming, in a way, that person, but from a position of power, not from a position of, you know, it's taken everything out of my life, but from a position of, I'm not going to let it take any more time. You know, and then when you do this, again, talking, I want you to talk in your mind like I'm talking right now, you know, from a strong position of power. And that really speeds up the recovery process. And then also, what would help is when you going about your day-to-day life, do it as if you've already recovered from OCD. So you want to start a project? When you recover, start it now. You wanted to get a new job, whatever, do whatever it is you want to do. Do it now. Show your mind that there's nothing wrong, because that's the bottom line of OCD, is it's anxiety about nothing. There's nothing actually wrong, but your mind makes you think like it is. So we have to show your mind on every level that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong, so I'm not going to feel bad about, my progress. I'm not going to feel bad about things I'm missing because I'm going to just do them, and I'm not going to feel about the recovery because I'm just going to power through. So there's nothing wrong in any way. When you do this, you're going to speed up your recovery, but, never get down on yourself about it. So next question is, hey, I feel as though I'm going backwards in my recovery. I'm trying to deal with my thoughts, but they seem to be becoming on stronger and feel more real. And then I start to avoid because of the feelings I get, and it's really getting to me. How do I deal with the feelings and the guilt? Basically, you have to disregard it. Your OCD is not different than any other type of OCD. They're all just OCD thoughts. No matter how scary they feel, how real they seem, they're still OCD. So all of that anxiety, guilt, feelings, any emotion, OCD is attached by emotion. And this is, again, another reason, because I'm seeing people not listening until, on my back end I can see it, right? The people are not listening until the very end. You really need to listen to the show until the end, because there's just a lot of information given. It will speed up your recovery. So when you're getting these feelings, you need to always view them as only OCD. Guilt, normal OCD feeling all the time. I can tell you that the only time you wouldn't get OCD guilt, when you're dealing with OCD, would be if your topic is not doesn't have anything to do with guilt. That it's not. It's nothing to do with guilt. But most of the types of OCD do have to do with guilt. So most of the time people get it as part of so anxiety brings on the guilt. It's kind of all in one. OCD is only attached to you by the feelings. There's no logic here. It's only attached by the feelings. But the feelings are so extreme that you're losing the logic. You're just having the feelings. And because the feelings, they're kind of clouding the logic. Logic is still there. You just can't see it like everybody else if you're doing reassurance, which you shouldn't be. But if you're doing that, you can see that everybody's like, what are you talking about? This is silly. But you can't see it because your mind is clouded by the feelings. Well, why does it feel so real? Because you have OCD. Why doesn't you feel guilty? Because you have OCD. Simple. That's how OCD operates. When you have a cold, it's, why do I have runny nose? Because you have a cold. Why do you have guilt? Because you have OCD. That's it. Not taking those feelings seriously. Yes, they're there. Yes, they're annoying, but they're not valid. So next question is, I've been doing ERP for anxiety and OCD, and it's been helping me. Do you recommend keeping it up? Yes, of course. I tell myself that these thoughts are my best friend. Haha. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Is like, if you take the fear out of it, and that's the person says, and they don't seem to scare me anymore. Thank you for your help. And that's the thing is, when you're saying, like, say for example, your OCD will tell you, when you're driving, you're gonna hit somebody. Yeah, whatever, It's not that you're saying whatever you're going to hit somebody. It's that you're saying whatever, this is another OCD thought. I don't care. This is not real in any way. If you're treating it like it's just a silly thought, then it can't get you. It can only get you when you're coming from a position of fear. Which, that's the major thing that you have to work on. And then again, it's not going to happen every single time, but you have to have a good average of more success than fails. Another thing that people ask me a lot, I'm going to just rephrase the question a little bit, but the person is saying that OCD comes in dreams as well. And again, that's very, very common. The reason why it happens is because if you are consciously choosing to refuse an OCD thought, how else can your mind protect you, right? Very likely it's going to come in a dream, because the situation is unresolved, right? So it can come up in a dream. So if it does, who cares? It's OCD powering through. So this next question is very important. It addresses a few different things that I did want to mention but never got a chance to. So it's a little bit long, but just bear with me. So the question is, hi Ali, I have one question. 1 year ago, I thought I was fully recovered from OCD and anxiety. At the time, I had to go to college every day, and also I got myself busy working. So I was most of the day out with people, and that helped me a lot. My OCD disappeared and I thought that I was recovered, but later on I had exams month and I had to sit at home alone and study for my exams. That was when my OCD came back, and even worse than it did before. Same thing happened during the summer holidays, in which my OCD also got worse, and this cycle has repeated itself many times. So the cycle is feeling OCD free and healthy for 3 months, then getting back OCD for 1 to 2 months during long holidays or exams month. Being out in society helped me dismissing fears, thoughts, and looking at things more practical in a realistic way. But once I'm back home alone for periods of time, I get back all my OCD even worse than before. I'm afraid that this is what OCD will give me next time I have exams time or holidays coming up. I thought that getting myself busy by working on meeting people was a helpful way to recover, but it seems it is not. Since every time I was alone for a long time, I again have much worse OCD. Is it a bad method to use? I mean, is it bad to get oneself busy with people, work in order to forget and dismiss OCD fears? Why didn't I recover fully? So, so what's happening here is when you are busy, you're not giving attention to OCD. So, in a way, you're powering through it. Also, because you are not viewing the thoughts are really going away. But you're never giving yourself a chance to fully recover, because in 3 months, your brain has just started to change those, connections between fear and your thoughts. And then when you go on a holiday, you have a lot of time and you give in to OCD. It's not the holiday, it's you giving in. You have to refuse. And this time, when you go on a holiday, view it that, okay, I finished my schoolwork, I finished my, job stuff. Now I'm working on OCD. This is the time I'm going to power through. I'm not going to have another setback like I did last time. I'm going to make this happen. And when thoughts come in, I'm going to be ready. So it's not going to be able to sneak up on you this time, So if you do this from a position of power, also, I'm not sure if this is the case. It could be, it could be not. You can kind of examine and see, but it's when you are around people and when you're being busy, make sure you're not busy out of fear. Like, I need to put as much into my day in order to not have OCD come in. So I'm just going to make myself as busy as possible. Staying busy, what you were asking about staying busy, right? Staying busy is good because it helps you power through. But you have to keep in mind that as soon as you're not busy, your mind is going to bring OCD right back. Because you need to show your mind that you just don't care anymore. You don't care if you're busy. You're not going to take OCD seriously. When you're not busy, you're not going to take OCD seriously. You're just done with it in every possible way, in every possible situation. If it has to do with your themes, it's OCD. And that's where the major mistake happened in terms of recovery. And you're not far away from recovery, because if you can stay strong for 3 months straight, then that already shows that you're fairly close to recovery, but you're just allowing yourself to have that setback, which sends you back. So, and this is what I wanted to talk to you guys about, is when you are by yourself and the OCD thought will most likely come in, not all the time, but most likely it will come in more than not, because your mind is still very preoccupied with the theme of the OCD, with the situation, right? So whenever you have a free moment, it's going to try to send it to you. So anticipate that. Okay, I'm busy right now, so I'm doing good, I'm being productive, OCD is not coming in, great. But I know when I go home, or whatever, when I'm going to have free time, it's probably going to come in. So I'm prepared now that when it does come in, I'm going to choose not to react. So when you have that kind of a mental preset, when it comes in, it's not a surprise. It's not sneaking up, to scare you, right? It's, okay, I thought it was going to come in. Here it is. Not going to react, and saying it that way. This is the end of today's show. Thank you for staying until the end. Please use the techniques described in the show. Again, always from a position of power. That's the way to recovery. If you're interested in private recovery program, you can find it on youhaveocd.com. If you're new here, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next show.